Now available in paperback and e-readers, Isis Legacy. Sorority secrets of the goddess next door are revealed in this all-new Isis series adventure. Get Isis Legacy in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere. Actress Nichelle Nichols passed away today at 89 years old. And your Nichelle Nichols will always be remembered for her signature role portraying Lieutenant Uhura, the communications officer on the late 1960s television series Star Trek. Now, your Nichelle Nichols was a trailblazer because she was the first black woman to portray a Starfleet officer, a black woman who had tremendous power on the Starfleet ship, the USS Enterprise. However, behind the scenes of the show, there was a major fight to get your Nichelle Nichols on the air portraying Lieutenant Uhura, and your producers were, like Gene Roddenberry, were fighting hard behind the scenes because your Lieutenant Uhura was one of the first major roles that was portrayed of a black person on television. Now, back in the late 1960s, producers like Fess Parker and your Gene Roddenberry were fighting behind the scenes with network executives to get black actors to be portrayed in roles on major television shows, because back then there were next to no black people presented on most of your network television, and producers like your Fess Parker and your Gene Roddenberry had to fight against network executives' resistance and their racism that prevented us from seeing black people on television shows. And the first black person we ever saw was in the Western Daniel Boone, and after Daniel Boone presented us the first black person in a major role on a TV show, we got to see Lieutenant Uhura on Star Trek. And Lieutenant Uhura was a major change from what we saw on mainstream TV shows, because oftentimes we would see black people, they would be portraying these kind of slave-like roles, but Lieutenant Uhura was a Starfleet officer. She was a professional, polished, beautiful black woman, and this polished, professional black woman was an icon because she represented a black woman who had power in the future, and she was a part of representing a future where black people had a place in the world. Now, back in the 1960s, your Nichelle Nichols didn't really think much of her role as Lieutenant Uhura, and she was going to leave the Star Trek show. However, after having a meeting with Martin Luther King Jr., the late Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., she was persuaded to remain on the show. Now, the late Dr. King said to Nichelle Nichols that her role was a very important one to black people because your Lieutenant Uhura was representing a future where black people had a place in society, and your Lieutenant Uhura represented the future of black people 300 years from now. And Dr. King, being what we would call a Trekkie at the time, saw how important the role of Lieutenant Uhura was as related to shaping the futures of many of the young black children who watched the show. He again went out here and talked to Nichelle Nichols, showing her the importance of the role. And once he showed her the importance of the role, she then went back to producer Gene Roddenberry and tried to get her job back. And your Gene Roddenberry enthusiastically gave her back her job because he also understood the future for black people. And I believe one of the reasons why he cast her as Lieutenant Uhura was to show that there was a future for black people in the world of science fiction and fantasy, and that we had a place in that world. And that was something that children needed to imagine, that they had a part and a place in a world of the future. And that's why Star Trek was so important to black people, not only because of Nichelle Nichols' roles, but because we also got to see other black actors in roles as well. Now, as your Nichelle Nichols went on with her career after Star Trek ended, she did star in another role that many people remember her as a madam in the blaxploitation movie Truck Turner. Now, in this film, she was participating in behavior unbecoming a Starfleet officer, but she was showing her range as an actress and showed us how great an actress she was. Now, another role I remember your Nichelle Nichols playing that I will always be fond of is a voiceover role that she played in the 1990 series Gargoyles, where she played the mother of Elisa Maza, who was voiced by actress Sally Richardson Whitfield. Now, this was a major moment for me because I got to see two generations of the greatest actresses in the worlds of science fiction and fantasy coming together in that classic episode of Gargoyles, which focused on the Maza family. And that was one of the great moments of Gargoyles because we got to see the legendary Nichelle Nichols portraying Elisa Maza's mom, and we got to see the legendary actress Sally Richardson Whitfield playing Elisa Maza, and I got to see two generations of the greatest black actresses in science fiction and fantasy playing together in a project. I only lament that we never got a chance to see your Nichelle Nichols and Sally Richardson and possibly Pam Grier coming together to work together in a film. I believe that would have been one of the greatest moments out there because we would have had, again, three of the greatest women of science fiction and fantasy coming together to perform in one classic project. But your Nichelle Nichols went on to again continue acting for many years before she wound up having issues with her health, and she continued to do a lot of great work in many other projects, including all of the Star Trek movies that featured the original cast, and she's also gone on to do some singing on some episodes of Star Trek, and she has done again a lot of great work in entertainment. But many people don't know how much work Nichelle Nichols did behind the scenes with organizations like NASA after the cancellation of Star Trek, and she went out here and worked with them on a volunteer basis, helping to recruit black, minority, and females into the space agency, and they would learn about the space program and they would learn about science. And this is how we got many of our great people out here, like your Sally Ride and your Steve McNair into the program, and we got your Guion Bulford, the first black astronaut. All of these people were recruited by your Nichelle Nichols and her contributions to NASA, and she gave all of these great contributions to the world of science, in addition to the world of science fiction and fantasy. So this is one of the reasons why I call Nichelle Nichols the first lady of black science fiction and fantasy, because she was a great lady who made great contributions to the world of black science fiction and black fantasy by being a role model for brothers and sisters and showing us that we can go out here and achieve and accomplish in the future, and that she showed us that we had a place in the future and we had hope of being better than what we thought we were today, and that we could do better for ourselves tomorrow. So we really lost an icon of television. We lost the first lady of black science fiction and fantasy, and we lost a truly great lady today when Nichelle Nichols passed away. And I'm deeply sad for her loss, and I'm deeply disappointed to see that she's gone. But your Nichelle Nichols left a great legacy for black people by all of her great work on Earth. And I guess the Most High said it was her time to leave this world, and he had mercy on her as he allowed her to cross over to the other side. So I'm really, again, saddened to hear about the passing of Nichelle Nichols. We lost again a truly great lady, and we lost the first lady of black comics, black science fiction, and black fantasy, and an inspiration to many creators like myself. Many of us, we don't understand the impact that Nichelle Nichols had on multiple generations with her role of Lieutenant Uhura, and your Dr. Martin Luther King had the vision to see that Nichelle Nichols' role wasn't insignificant. He understood how important it was, and before he passed, a year before he passed, he helped your Nichelle Nichols stay on a show that would shape and mold generations to come. And again, it takes great vision to see a future like that. And that's one of the things that was powerful about Dr. King. And when I think about Nichelle Nichols, again, we lost a truly great lady today, and I'm saddened to hear about her passing because her contributions to the world made it a better place, and her contributions to the world of black comics, science fiction, and fantasy inspired many and opened up many imaginations, and opened up the imaginations of millions of black children like myself to see a world where we had a place in it, a world where we could be out here and imagine ourselves in a future, imagine ourselves in a place like outer space, and imagine ourselves as a hero in a story. Your Nichelle Nichols, in her portrayal of Uhura, she didn't think it was much, but it had a major impact on millions of lives, and it will have an impact on many generations to come. I'm sad that we lost one of the great icons of science fiction and fantasy, and I'm sad to hear about the passing of the first lady of black science fiction, and I'm sad to hear about her passing, and I'm hoping that she finds peace on the other side, and and in her eternal life has great prosperity. Rest in power, Nichelle Nichols. I'm sad to hear about you being gone, but I'm hoping that again you have peace and prosperity in eternity.